Howdy, folks, and welcome to Saddle and Sixskin. Are you looking for stories from the Old West, tales that dig a little deeper into the grit and glory of frontier life? Then you've come to the right place. We're gonna share yarns spun from the dust and echoes of a time gone by. Today, we're diving into a story of silence, betrayal, and the unlikely bond between a white woman and an Apache warrior. If you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Espiransa hadn't spoken since the day she witnessed the tragic passing of her father. This silence was like a heavy weight on her mother's heart. Her family's story is just beginning. But when the Apache traveler, the Lone Ranger, began sketching stories in the sand, a faint spark flickered within the young girl's hollow eyes. Could it be? The truth be told, no one could have predicted that the drawings would have such a profound and lasting impact, that they would change their lives forever and become a testimony to the human spirit. Sometimes, even in the direst of circumstances, a single spark of hope is all that's needed to ignite a new fire. The dust never truly settled in Clearwater Springs, Texas. It drifted in the atmosphere, just like unspoken prayers, coating the streets, the homes, and the people, with the somber colors of dried blood and broken promises. Martha Whitaker, a woman weathered beyond her years, stood at her kitchen window. She was watching the main street. The glass was dirty with grime, casting an underwater-like distortion on the already bleak scenery. What was ahead for the Whitaker family? Were there brighter days ahead for Martha and Lucy? Have you, yourself, ever experienced a situation in your life where you felt that nothing was ever going to change? If you have, consider that even in the deepest darkness, a single candle is all you need to see. If you're enjoying this tale, don't be shy, like and subscribe. Her hands, still achy and swollen from hours of kneading dough since dawn, trembled slightly as she gripped the windowsill. 9 long months had passed since they brought Samuel home, a scene forever etched into her memory. 9 months since her beloved husband's lifeless body had arrived, wrapped in a somber cavalry blanket. His clothes were stiff and grim with blood that had turned black under the harsh Texas sun. The arrows, the instruments of his demise, had been removed, but the wounds remained. They were an insult. These were small, precise wounds that seemed to mock the life that had cruelly leaked out through them. Was she destined to walk the path of sorrow for the rest of her days? Had the sun truly set on the Whitaker homestead? I wonder if she would ever be able to move on. Was she strong enough to guide Lucy? What lies ahead for these two? Mama. The whisper was soft. Did she imagine it? Martha almost missed the sound. She turned to see her daughter, Lucy, standing in the doorway. Her small frame cast a shadow that was too large for her petite frame. The child's auburn hair hung limp around her face. It had gone unwashed for days. Her hair was in disarray. And those green eyes. They held the same hollow emptiness they'd carried since that fateful night, the night her father, Samuel, had been taken from her. They were the eyes of a lost soul, staring out at a world they no longer understood. "What is it, baby?" Martha asked gently. What did she want? Lucy's lips moved slightly, but no sound emerged. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping desperately for water. Her face flushing red with the effort of trying to form the words that would stubbornly refuse to come. What a sad situation for Lucy. Martha knelt beside her daughter, gently pulling her small body against her chest, feeling the rapid heartbeat of a trapped bird. "It's all right," Martha whispered, even though her own voice cracked under the weight of unshed tears. "You don't have to speak if you don't want to." But it wasn't a matter of wanting. It was a matter of can't. The words had been stolen from Lucy. They were taken the night she'd watched her father succumb to his wounds. Lucy was crouched behind the grain sacks while painted faces moved through the smoke and firelight. The night she'd heard voices. Voices that she recognized mixing with the haunting war cries in the darkness. Could it be? Was it true? Is there more to this story than what it seems? The settlement of Clearwater Springs had grown around the promise of silver in the nearby hills. It also grew around the potential of the railroad that would someday connect them to the rest of the civilization. But prosperity had brought dangers that the founders could never have anticipated. The Apache raids had increased. It grew at the same rate that more settlers claimed land that had belonged to no man's law for centuries. Now, fear lived in every house. Shared like bread at communion. Would they ever be able to relax? Martha stood slowly, her knees creaking like old leather. The day's toils and the constant struggle were taking their toll. At 31, she felt ancient. Worn down by grief and the constant, grinding struggle to keep their small farm running alone. Was this her destiny? The corn was ripe and ready for harvest, but she simply couldn't manage it by herself. The chickens desperately needed tending. The roof leaked in 3 places, and the harsh Texas winter was coming, whether she was ready or not. It was coming. If you're enjoying this story, like and subscribe. Mrs. Whitaker. The voice came from outside. It was accompanied by the creak of wagon wheels. Martha peered through the window. She was trying to see. She watched as Dr. Dabney Benjamin Hayes climbed down from his buckboard. He clutched his black bag, his reliable companion, in one weathered hand. Behind him rode Tom Brennan, the town's self-appointed leader. He rode along with 2 other men she recognized from the general store. Lucy pressed closer to her mother's side. Her breathing was shallow and quick. Martha opened the door before they could even knock. Dr. Hayes. Gentlemen. She said. Martha. Hayes removed his hat, revealing silver hair that had once been brown. His eyes, kind but tired, found Lucy. How is she today? He asked. The same. Martha's voice was steady, but her hands betrayed her. They were smoothing her apron in nervous gestures. No words, no sound at all. Tom Brennan shifted his weight. The leather of his boots squeaking. He was a large man. Brennan had grown wealthy selling supplies to miners, and he carried his authority like a badge. Martha, we need to talk about Lucy. He started. About what's best for her. Martha's eyes flashed with concern, her maternal instincts kicking in. She's fine where she is, Martha insisted. Was she really fine? Or was she afraid of what Tom was going to propose? No child should go without speech for this long. Dr. Hayes stepped forward. His manner was gentle but firm. I've exhausted every treatment I know. He continued. Perhaps she needs different care. Could they provide that care? Different care? Martha's voice sharpened. Brennan cleared his throat with authority. There's an asylum in San Antonio. They specialize in cases like this. He continued. Children who've been damaged by trauma. Oh my goodness, what was Brennan insinuating? The word damaged hung in the air. It was like smoke from a dying fire. Martha felt something cold and hard settle in her stomach. What a terrible situation. What a terrible thing to consider. My daughter is not damaged. She stated. Martha was resolute in her statement. She was strong-willed. She had to be. Martha. Dr. Hayes's voice carried the weight of careful consideration. She hasn't spoken in 9 months. She barely eats. She starts at every sound. This isn't natural. How horrible was this to hear? Nothing about losing her father in front of her eyes is natural. She responded. The men exchanged glances. Martha recognized the look. The same expression they wore when discussing failed crops or horses that needed to be put down. Something beyond saving. Oh no! She can see that they are thinking about culling her. Is that what the future hold for her? The truth is, Brennan said. His voice taking on the tone he used for business negotiations. The settlement's changing. We can't have complications when the railroad comes through. What was this guy talking about? He could be using Lucy to accomplish a greater goal. Investors need to see a thriving, normal community. He continues. And my child isn't normal enough for you? Martha retorted. That's not what we mean. Dr. Hayes interjected quickly. But Lucy needs help. The community can't provide help here. How did you help? Professional help. Martha felt Lucy's small hand slip into hers. Her fingers were cold as winter water. The child was listening. She was understanding every word that painted her as broken, unwanted, and inconvenient. Was it going to work? I said, no. Martha's voice carried a finality that made all three men step back. Lucy stays with me. Would it work? What was their next move? If you're looking for more great stories, give us a like and subscribe. After they left, Martha sat on her front porch. Lucy curled in her lap like a wounded animal. It was a very sad situation. The sun was setting behind the hills. It was painting the sky the color of fresh blood. In the distance, smoke rose from the Apache lands. She wondered, was it cooking fires or signal fires? Martha just couldn't tell the difference anymore. It was all so convoluted. I won't let them take you. She whispered into Lucy's hair. I promise. But promises were fragile things in a place where men died for their cattle and children lost their voices to fear. What was she going to do? Would she live up to her promise? The Apache appeared at dawn. He was emerging from the morning mist like a figure from legend. Martha first saw him from her bedroom window. A lone rider on a paint horse sitting motionless on the ridge that overlooked their small farm. He remained there as she dressed Lucy and prepared breakfast. He was motionless. His silhouette was dark against the brightening sky. A dark omen? Lucy noticed him, too. She stood at the kitchen window. She had one small hand pressed against the glass. Lucy's green eyes were fixed on the distant figure with an intensity that surprised her mother. Was he friend or foe? She just didn't know. Just another drifter, Martha murmured, but her hand instinctively moved to the rifle hanging above the mantel. Probably looking for work or directions. Was he really? This action seemed out of the ordinary. Was he trying to figure something out? When she looked again an hour later, he was closer. Much closer. He was standing beside the broken fence that separated their land from the open range, examining the damage winter storms had caused to the wooden posts. It was like he was waiting for them. Up close, she could see the details that marked him as Apache. The way he sat his horse. The cut of his clothing. The long black hair that moved like water in the morning breeze. He was a mysterious character. Martha felt her mouth go dry. He was like a mysterious creature of the night. In 9 months, no Apache had come this close to their small farm. After Samuel's death, they'd kept to the hills and reservation lands, as if some invisible treaty held them back from the place where violence had already claimed its due. What did that mean? What were they trying to hide? But this one was different. He sat his horse with quiet confidence, showing no signs of aggression or haste. It was an interesting situation. When he turned toward the house, Martha saw his face. Younger than she'd expected, perhaps 30. With features that spoke of both strength and careful intelligence. What could it be? Scars marked his left cheek and forehead. They were old wounds that had healed white against bronze skin. Lucy tugged at her mother's skirt. She was pointing toward the rider. What did she want? I see him, baby. Martha lifted the rifle from its hooks, checking the load out of habit rather than intent. Stay inside, she commanded. She stepped onto the porch. The wooden boards creaking under her boots. Were they setting up for trouble? The Apache watched her approach the railing. His dark eyes were taking in every detail. The rifle in her hands. The defensive set of her shoulders. The way she positioned herself between him and the house. He was taking it all in. For a long moment, they studied each other across the 30 yards that separated them. Martha saw no weapon in his hands, though she knew that meant little. Apache could kill with their bare hands if they chose to. What to do? This was such a dilemma. If you like this story, consider subscribing. We release more stories every week. Morning, she called out. Her voice carrying clearly in the still air. He nudged his horse forward, stopping just outside the broken gate. When he spoke, his English was clear but heavily accented. Your fence is broken, he said. I noticed. Martha kept the rifle ready but not aimed. You offering to fix it? She asked. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. Did he know something she didn't know? Perhaps I don't have money to pay for work. The Apache responded. Did not ask for money. Did he? The simplicity of his response caught her off guard. In a territory where every transaction was measured in dollars or favors, someone offering labor without payment was as rare as rain in August. What was going on? Why would you want to help me? Martha asked the Apache. He was quiet for a long moment. His gaze moving from Martha to the house. Lucy's face was barely visible through the window glass. She was observing. Bad things happened here, he stated. Make it harder for good things to grow. The words were delivered without emotion, but they carried weight. Martha felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. Did he know about Samuel? Was he involved? What was his angle? You know what happened to my husband? Martha asked. No, he died protecting family, the Apache said. No, there was honor in his death. What was this? Honor? Martha's voice rose despite herself. There was no honor in ambush. No honor in murder. She responded. The Apache studied her face, reading emotions. He could tell that she was starting to lose it. She tried to hide. Your husband fought 3 men before arrows found him. He retorted. Fought until he could fight no more. That is honor, he stated. How true was this? 3 men? Martha's grip tightened on the rifle. The army said it was a raid. 6 or 7 warriors. She stated. Army says many things. Not all true. He replied. Martha felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She could tell that something was off. You were there? She asked. No. The Apache voice carried quiet certainty. But I know men who were. Know what they saw. Did he know more? And what did they see? Martha asked. The Apache was quiet for so long. He seemed to contemplate answering her request. She wondered if he would answer. Finally, he spoke. His words were measured and careful. Here it comes. Saw white men with painted faces. Saw neighbors become enemies in the darkness. Is that true? Was it her own neighbors? The rifle slipped from Martha's numb fingers. It was clattering against the porch railing. It all made sense now. You're lying, Martha stated. Apache do not lie about death. Too important. The Apache responded. Behind the window glass, Lucy had pressed both hands against the pane. Her small face was intent with an expression Martha had not seen since before Samuel died. The child was listening. Understanding something her mother was only beginning to grasp. This was so sad. And Lucy's response made it all the more complicated. My name is Joseph Crow Feather, the Apache said. His voice was gentler now. "I come because the child has lost her voice," he stated. "How do you know words travel?" Martha retorted. "She has not spoken since her father died," he stated. "She carries weight too heavy for small shoulders." Martha's legs felt suddenly weak. She gripped the railing for support. Her mind was racing through possibilities she had never allowed herself to consider. "It's too crazy. If what you're saying is true, if white men were involved, then the child saw what no child should see. Saw betrayal where there should have been trust," she stated. This was beyond terrible. The meaning hit Martha like a physical blow. Lucy's silence wasn't just trauma from witnessing violence. It was the response of a mind protecting itself from a truth too terrible to voice. The recognition of familiar faces among those who had killed her father. Was this the truth? Who? Martha whispered. Who would do such a thing? Joseph Crowfeather turned his horse as if to leave. He suddenly paused. He looked at her for a moment. Ask yourself. Who benefits from fear? Who grows wealthy when others are afraid? It's all starting to make sense now. As he rode away, his words echoed in Martha's mind like the tolling of a funeral bell. So disturbing. She thought of Tom Brennan's urgency about sending Lucy away and Dr. Hayes's insistence that the child was beyond help and the way certain men in town had grown prosperous since the raids began. A whole scheme started coming to the surface. Lucy was still at the window when Martha returned to the house. Her green eyes bright with something that might have been hope. What lies ahead? Do you want to know? If so, like and subscribe. Joseph Crowfeather returned the next morning. He was bringing with him tools and wire to mend the broken fence. Sheesh. What was going on? Martha met him at the repaired gate. Lucy was close beside her. She was still clutching the river stone like a talisman. Thought you might need wood for winter, Joseph said simply. Saw your pile is low. What an interesting situation. Martha studied his face. She was looking for the truth behind his careful generosity. You're not just being neighborly, are you? She asked. No, Joseph began unloading the travois. His movements efficient and practiced. There was no hiding it this time. Men in town are asking questions about Apache who visits Widow's farm, Joseph began. May not be safe for me to come much longer, he said. Let them ask. Martha's voice carried a hardness that surprised them both. She was more ready than before. I've got questions of my own that need answering. Martha began. Joseph paused in his work, reading the change in her tone. She was much more direct. Could he be the answer? Child told you what she saw, he started. It wasn't a question. Martha nodded. She heard voices. Recognized them, he answered. Then you know why they want her sent away, he began. Silent child is one thing, child who speaks truth is another, Joseph said. What does this mean? Is Lucy going to turn the town upside down? Lucy stepped closer to Joseph, holding out the river stone. Was she trying to give it to him? He knelt to her level, accepting the offered gift with grave courtesy. Keep safe, she asked in her whisper-soft voice. He was kind to Lucy. Keep very safe, Joseph promised. Was he sincere? But some gifts are better shared. He reached into his pouch again. This time withdrawing a small piece of carved bone for trade. Lucy examined the carving of a bird in flight. She nodded, exchanging the gift for her stone. Joseph tucked the river stone into his shirt close to his heart. Now we both carry something the other gave, he told Lucy. What an interesting thing to do. Makes us family of a kind, Joseph exclaimed. Family, Lucy repeated. The word carrying wonder in its soft syllables. Martha felt tears threaten again. How could this all be happening so fast? In 3 days, This Apache stranger had given her daughter something she thought was lost forever. A great opportunity. The ability to trust. To connect. To believe in human goodness. "Joseph," Martha said quietly. "I need to know everything about the night Samuel died, about who was really there." Could she bear to hear the news? Joseph finished stacking the wood before answering. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of careful consideration. "Truth is a dangerous thing," he began. "Once spoken, it cannot be taken back." "I'm not asking you to take it back," Martha responded. "I'm asking you to help me find it. Can they discover the truth about Samuel's death?" Joseph looked from Martha to Lucy. His dark eyes were serious. "Child should not hear this," Joseph warned. Martha knelt beside her daughter. "Lucy, honey, I need you to go inside and draw me a picture." "Can you do that?" Martha asked. "What to do here?" Lucy nodded. Understanding the weight of adult conversation even if she didn't grasp its specifics, he added. She clutched the carved bird and headed for the house. She was pausing only to look back at Joseph. "You come back?" Lucy asked. "If your mama wants me to," Joseph answered. Lucy looked to Martha, who nodded. The child disappeared inside, satisfied. Joseph waited until they were alone before speaking. "Your husband was taking supplies to the Martinez family. Was he trying to make a delivery? Their youngest was sick, needed medicine from town, was alone when they stopped him," Joseph said. "They 3 men, white men painted like Apache, but they made mistakes. Spoke English when they thought no one could hear. Left tracks my people would never leave," Joseph reported. "What does this mean?" Martha felt cold despite the afternoon sun. "Who were they?" Martha asked. She was trying to process. "Tom Brennan led them. Dr. Hayes was there. Third man was Sheriff Morrison," Joseph answered. The names hit Martha like physical blows. The blows were hard. Could she ever recover from this betrayal? 3 of the most respected men in Clearwater Springs. 3 men she'd trusted served food to at church socials allowed into her home. The thought made her shudder. But why? She whispered. Why would they kill Samuel? Joseph began. Your husband discovered something, maybe by accident, maybe on purpose. Something that threatened their plans, Joseph began. What does this mean? What plans? Martha asked. She was waiting. Joseph was quiet for a long moment. His gaze moved across the landscape as if reading signs invisible to Martha's eyes. Is there a hidden agenda here? Railroad is coming. Government will pay good money for land rights. Especially land cleared of Indian trouble. Men who own that land will become very wealthy, Joseph answered. What? This has all been a land grab scheme. But there was Indian trouble. The raids, some real, some not. Easy to blame Apache for attacks we did not make, easy to create fear that drives people away from valuable land, Joseph said. What was happening? The picture Joseph painted was ugly in its simplicity. Create terror through false flag attacks. Blame the Apache. Drive out small farmers like Samuel who owned land the railroad would need. Then buy the abandoned property for nothing and sell it to the government for fortunes, Joseph reported. Samuel figured it out, Martha said. The pieces falling into place. He was investigating, wasn't he? Asking questions, watching movements, making notes about things that did not make sense, Joseph reported. Notes? Martha's heart raced. What kind of notes? Martha asked. Times and places, names of men seen where they should not have been. Evidence that raids happened when Apache were elsewhere, Joseph answered. This was insane. Do you know where these notes are? Martha asked. Joseph shook his head. Searched for them after he died, could not find. Maybe destroyed, maybe hidden well, Joseph answered. Martha's mind raced through possibilities. Samuel had been a careful man, methodical in his record-keeping. If he'd been investigating something this important, he would have documented everything, and he would have hidden those documents somewhere safe. "The barn," she said suddenly. "Can you believe this? We have so much to cover. Like and subscribe." Samuel was always working on something in the barn. Said he was fixing harness, but he spent hours out there, Joseph began. They walked to the weathered structure together, Martha's heart pounding with anticipation and dread, he added. Inside, the familiar smells of hay and leather brought back memories of Samuel bent over his workbench, writing by lamplight when he thought she wasn't watching. Joseph examined the space with practiced eyes, looking for hiding places a farmer might use. Joseph reported. What was he doing? It was Martha who noticed the loose board near Samuel's workbench, a plank that shifted slightly when she stepped on it. Underneath, wrapped in oiled cloth, they found Samuel's journal, Joseph said. This was getting intense. Martha's hands shook as she opened the leather-bound book. Page after page of careful observations, dates and time sketches of tracks and evidence and names. So many names of men she'd considered neighbors and friends, she answered. Dear God, she whispered, reading entries that detailed months of investigation. He knew everything, Martha said. Joseph read over her shoulder, his expression growing darker with each page. He knew it all. This is enough to hang them all, Joseph exclaimed. But who would believe us? Lucy's just a child who was traumatized. You're Apache. I'm a widow who might be seen as seeking revenge, Martha responded. Truth has power of its own, Joseph said quietly. Sometimes truth finds way to be heard, Joseph promised. A sound outside made them both freeze. The approach of multiple horses. Joseph moved to the barn window, his body tense with sudden alertness. How many? Martha whispered. 5 men armed, Joseph answered. This was getting serious. Martha clutched Samuel's journal to her chest, her mind racing. They'd been discovered. Somehow word of Joseph's visits had reached the wrong ears, she said. Is there another way out? Joseph asked. She needed an escape. Martha pointed to the back of the barn where a loose board in the wall could be pushed aside. That leads to the creek. You can follow it north to the hills, Martha answered. What about you and the child? Joseph asked. We'll face them, act like we don't know anything, she responded. Joseph shook his head. They will not take chances, not with this much at stake, he stated. The truth of his words settled over Martha like a cold shroud. Men who had killed once would not hesitate to kill again, especially when their entire future depended on silence, Martha said. Then we all run, Martha said. Lucy and I will come with you into Apache territory, with winter coming. Better to freeze in the hills than die in our own home, she added. The sound of voices reached them from outside, Tom Brennan's distinctive boom. Dr. Hayes's cultured tones, the harsh bark of Sheriff Morrison giving orders, Joseph said. Joseph gripped Martha's shoulders, his dark eyes intense. Listen carefully, take only what you must, move quickly but quietly, follow creek north until you reach the standing stones, wait there. I will find you, Joseph began. What about you? Martha asked. I will delay them, give you time to escape, Joseph. No, if they catch you they expect to find Apache. I will give them what they expect, Joseph responded. Joseph planned to lead them away, to sacrifice himself so she and Lucy could escape. The generosity of it, the casual heroism, took her breath away. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for us? She asked. Child gave me back her voice. First words she spoke to stranger were to me that is gift without price, Joseph answered. Martha kissed his cheek, tasting salt and dust and the metallic tang of courage. Thank you, she said. Joseph nodded and moved toward the back of the barn. As Martha hurried toward the house to collect Lucy and whatever supplies they could carry, she heard him slip through the loose board and disappear into the approaching darkness, she stated. Behind her, the voices of the men who had killed her husband grew closer, carried on the wind like the promise of a coming storm. Lucy didn't question her mother's urgent whispers or the hasty packing of food and blankets into a canvas sack. 9 months of living with constant fear had taught the child to read danger in adult voices, to move quickly when safety demanded it, Martha said. They slipped out the back door as the first shots echoed from the barn. Joseph was drawing the hunters away from their prey. Martha clutched her daughter's hand in Samuel's journal as they ran across the darkening fields toward the creek that would carry them to temporary safety. The water was cold and shallow, barely covering their ankles as they waded upstream, she said. This was so risky. Lucy stumbled on the slippery stones, but she made no sound of complaint. Even her involuntary gasps were muffled, as if she understood that silence meant survival. Behind them, the sound of gunfire continued, single shots answered by the boom of rifles. She began. Martha forced herself not to look back, not to think about Joseph facing 5 armed men with only his wit and wilderness skills for protection. They reached the standing stones as the moon rose, its pale light transforming the ancient rock formation into ghostly sentinels. She reported. We have got to know. Is Joseph going to make it? Will they survive on their own? Subscribe to our channel to find out. Martha had heard Apache legends about this place, sacred ground where spirits gathered to guide the lost and protect the innocent. Lucy collapsed against one of the stones, exhausted but still holding the carved bird Joseph had given her, she said. Martha wrapped them both in blankets and waited, listening to the night sounds of the desert and praying that somewhere in the darkness a brave man was still alive. Joseph found them near dawn, materializing from the shadows like smoke given form, she added. His shirt was torn and bloodstained, his left arm hung awkwardly at his side, but he was alive and moving under his own power, she said. What a great success. Are you hurt? Martha whispered, her hands already reaching to examine his wounds. Bullet grazed ribs, nothing serious, Joseph said. Joseph sat heavily against a rock, fatigue evident in every line of his body. Lost them in the hills, they think I am dead. Good, Lucy said firmly, the word carrying fierce satisfaction. Bad men should think bad things, Lucy threatened. Joseph smiled despite his pain. Very wise little bird. Sometimes lies serve truth better than truth serves truth, he said. Martha cleaned and bandaged his wounds with strips torn from her petticoat while Lucy stood watch. The child had appointed herself guardian, her green eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of pursuit. What now? Martha asked as she tied off the makeshift bandage. We can't go back to Clearwater Springs, they'll be watching for us, she threatened. My people have winter camp and canyon 20 miles north. Will take us in until spring, Joseph began. Martha felt a flutter of fear. Will they, after everything that's happened? Joseph asked. Apache understand betrayal, understand what it means to be hunted for crimes others committed, Joseph said. Joseph's dark eyes met hers. Besides, child who speaks truth is welcome in any honest camp, Joseph said. Was that true? Lucy looked up from her vigil. We go live with Indian people for a while until it is safe to tell your story to people who will listen, Joseph said. Could it be true? Will there be children to play with? Many children and grandmothers who tell stories by firelight, Joseph answered. Lucy considered this, turning the carved bird over in her small hands. Will they like me even if I'm different, Lucy said. Joseph paused. Different how? He asked. This was getting intense. Different because I stopped talking. Different because bad things happened to me, she stated. Joseph reached out and touched Lucy's cheek with one finger. This was such a tender moment. Little bird, in my people's stories, the ones who survive the worst troubles are often the ones who become the strongest. Your silence was not weakness. It was wisdom. You kept the truth safe until you found someone who would protect it. Like you, like me, and like your mama, and like the people we're going to see, Joseph said. They traveled by night and rested during the day, following game trails and dry washes that Joseph navigated by instinct and ancestral knowledge, Joseph said. Lucy rode on Joseph's horse while Martha walked beside them, the three of them forming an unlikely family bound together by shared danger and mutual trust. On the third night, Lucy spoke the words that had been building in her heart since they left the farm. "Joseph, are you going to be my new papa?" Lucy asked. The question hung in the air like the scent of sage after rain. This was quite the moment. Joseph looked to Martha, reading something in her face that made his own expression soften. "Would you like that little bird?" Joseph asked. "Yes, but only if Mama wants it too," Lucy answered. Martha felt heat rise in her cheeks. In the space of a week her world had been completely transformed. The quiet Apache who had come to mend her fence had given her daughter back her voice, exposed the truth about her husband's murder, and saved their lives. Now he was offering them a place in his world, a chance at a different kind of family, he added. "I think," Martha said carefully. "That would depend on what Joseph wants," Martha said. "Joseph wants to keep both safe," he said quietly, "wants to see little bird grow strong and brave, wants to help her remember that not all men are enemies," Joseph answered. "Then yes," Martha said, the word carrying the weight of decision and hope. "Yes to all of it," she added. "We have so much more to tell. Subscribe to our channel, Saddle and Sixskin." Lucy clapped her hands in delight, the sound echoing across the desert like a bird's call. For the first time since Samuel's death, the future held promise instead of fear. They reached the Apache winter camp as the first snows began to fall in the high country, Joseph said. The settlement was larger than Martha had expected, dozens of lodges arranged in careful patterns among the trees, cooking fires sending fragrant smoke into the clear air, Martha observed. Joseph's arrival with 2 white refugees caused a stir, but Martha was surprised by the lack of hostility. Curious faces studied them, but she saw no hatred in the dark eyes of the Apache people. Instead, she saw the weariness of those who had learned to judge strangers by their actions rather than their appearance, Martha observed. Joseph spoke rapidly in his native language to an elderly man whose presence commanded obvious respect. The conversation continued for several minutes, Joseph's words occasionally punctuated by gestures toward Martha and Lucy, he added. This was intense. Finally, the elder approached them directly. His English was careful but clear. "Joseph Crow Feather says you seek justice for murdered husband, says child carries heavy truth," Joseph added. "What's going to happen now?" Martha nodded. "Yes, both are true. Truth is sacred thing, sacred to Apache, sacred to all people who honor what is right," she exclaimed. The elder studied Lucy with gentle eyes. "Child, you are safe here. Your silence and your words both have power. Use them wisely," he added. Lucy stepped forward with surprising confidence. "Thank you for letting us stay. I promise to be good," Lucy responded. The elder smiled, his weathered face transforming with warmth. "Goodness is not something you must promise, little one. Goodness is something you already carry in your heart," he began. As the Apache people welcomed them into their circle of fire, light, and family, Martha realized that losing her home had led her to find something greater, a place where truth was valued over comfort, where a child's testimony would be believed and protected, where love could grow in the most unexpected soil, he concluded. Amazing. That night, as snow began to fall softly on the canyon walls, Lucy fell asleep between Martha and Joseph, her small hand still clutching the carved bird. For the first time in 9 months, the child slept without nightmares, surrounded by the protection of people who understood that some truths were worth any sacrifice to preserve, the narrator said. Spring came late to the canyon country, but when it arrived, it brought more than wild flowers and warm winds. It brought a United States Marshal named James Crawford, a federal judge named Harrison Pike, and a mandate from the territorial governor to investigate reports of corruption in the railroad land acquisitions, the narrator